Hi, I'm Michael, and welcome to Beyond the Screenplay, the podcast where each week we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Except for this week, when we are doing our top 10 favorite films of the 90s, technically our top 10 of 1990 to 1998. We'll get to that in a second. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Arand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner.
Sup, home skillet.
And Alex Calleros.
Hi.
So we're doing our top 10 favorite films from 1990 to 1998. And this is for passing our goal of 900 patrons, which is amazing. Thank you, everybody that helped us get past that goal. And so this also unlocks a patron exclusive episode on our top 5 favorite films of 1999. The greatest year in movie history, obviously.
Obviously.
So that is available as a patron exclusive episode, available right now. So the link to that will be in the show notes. And at the time of this recording, we're very, very close to passing 1,000 patrons. So if you want to help us get past that goal and unlock our trilogy, our Godfather trilogy 3-part series, sign up for our Patreon and you get to hear our top 5 of 1999, which I am very much looking forward to. We haven't recorded that yet in this reality, but you guys will have it. Anyway. Okay, so we're gonna go through our top 10. So we're gonna go faster. Actually, Brian, do you want to explain the rules? Because I feel like you're the rules master of
He really
the top
is.
10.
The dungeon master,
rules.
you might say.
Yeah. It's really complicated rules, which is we talk about making our list and then we go from 10 through to 1, but backwards. So like instead of 1 to 10, which is forwards, we go 10 to 1. 10 to 4 and then 3 and then 2 and then 1. Build the suspense for the finale.
Right. Okay, excellent. Okay, and so we're going to do a kind of a different order. In the previous ones that we've done, I've gone last. And so this time I'm going to go first. And Brian's going to go last because for me anyway, it's the most suspenseful. I want to know what Brian's going to pick because it's probably going to be the most different from at least mine and probably Alex's.
Uncle Brian was alive at a different time of the 90s, in a different developmental stage, you might say, than the rest of us.
Yeah, speak up.
Okay, well, yeah. So let's go around and say, well, like, what was our criteria for putting together our list? And so for me, as kind of always with this, it's usually what movie do I want to watch right now? Like, if someone was like, let's watch this movie, I would say, yes, I am definitely into that right now. And it was hard because the 90s, there are a lot of movies from my childhood that were definitely my favorites. If you had asked me in the 90s, like things like The Lion King and like Jumanji and things like that would have been on my list.
Mm-hmm.
But or even like, Space Jam, but I had to, cut those because
Wow, you
might not be
Space Jam?
super. The soundtrack to Space Jam is a whole Space
It's your jam.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of my criteria. Is like, what are the movies that to this day I still want to watch because like, oh yeah, they're still good movies. So that's me. Trisha, what's your criteria for your top 10 list?
Ooh, this was really hard. I mean, I complain about this little dumb exercise that we do like every time because I don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm such a fickle person that this changes all the time. So like either one of the previous 2 episodes that we did, I feel like if you go back and listen to them, they would be different now for sure. And the one from the aughts was not that long ago. I feel like I might pick different movies today.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I strove to be as honest as I could about movies that I still just really love. I had to cut a lot of movies. My initial list had 32 movies on it, and that was for some reason too many to discuss in an episode. And so I just cut a lot of them. A lot of the ones that I ended up cutting were like multiples from the same filmmaker. So I was like, okay, I probably should only limit it to one of this particular filmmaker. I cut it down to one animated movie, which was hard enough to do considering the 90s were the golden era of animated film. The Disney Renaissance was the 90s. That was very challenging to do. And then I also cut a bunch of movies that I really love that would have made me look cooler. And I'm very sorry to say I just tried to be as real as I could and cut the ones that I know are critically acclaimed and I know are really good and are better than some of the ones on my list. But I cut them anyway. 100%. So here we are.
Yeah.
We're just going to be ourselves today.
I like it. Awesome. And Alex, what was your criteria?
I relate to both of you guys. It was very much, what movie would I want to just watch anytime, any day, forever? And then also just, what does my heart tell me? You know, because I also had a list of like 30 plus films, and I was just like, this is an objectively better movie than this one. But my heart says, no, this is in your top 10 list. It has to be. And a lot of where that comes from, I think, is the movies that did influence me. Yeah, you know, this is a formative period for all of us, but for us on the like more solidly millennial side, we were like truly children. We were little children during most of this decade. So this is what movies are. Like, this is the idea of what a movie could be and is started from these films in the 90s. So I think it's just a very, like you said, developmentally important moment for all of us. And so, these movies have this really intense place in my heart that, you know, there are movies that influenced me in high school and college and beyond, but these are like the beginning. You know, this is like where the love for this whole thing really began. So there was no logic involved. There was no objectivity involved. It was just all mixed up with that pure childhood nostalgia.
Yeah, I feel like especially for those of us that have gone on to, pursue a career in film, there's movies here that are just like, this is the reason I want to make movies, or like, this is why I write the kinds of things that I write, or whatever it is. And so, like, I have a couple of those too, for sure.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like I began this decade at age 4 and ended it at 14. So like you were starting to come online during that and like soaking up as much as possible. Okay. And Brian, what was your criteria?
As far as criteria goes, same thing I said on like the 2000s podcast, which is like, what's my personal history to it? How good do I actually think it is, like objectively as possible? What are the themes? What do I think it actually has to say? What do I take away from it? And then just how do I actually feel now watching it? There are movies that I, would watch all the time back then. And now if I watch it, it's like, it's fine. It's like, that was a movie for a 19-year-old and not necessarily for, I guess not 19. I'm not that old, but the funny thing is about age, they say that your most formative years, the times when the things that you love, the first things that you really love that keep with you, that stay with you, are from age 13 to 17, right around that time period. So for you guys, that's at least split across 2 decades. You kind of have the late 90s and the early aughts. But for me, it's, I was 14, 15 in basically I was 13 to 17 from 95 to 99. So right in this whole chunk, which means the 90s is early 90s is movies I watched as a fresh-faced kid, and then mid 90s are the movies where I started to kind of get into like movies, and these are smart and these are cool and and then late 90s is me actually kind of adulthood a little bit and like actually studying film and what can I really take away from this piece of work. So it's just like such a broad decade for me. So breaking everything down was just completely impossible. It's helpful at least that we have 99 split off, because then that's a whole other situation. And I'll talk more about movies that didn't make specific movies that didn't make the list later. But the 2 things I thought of as like, there's no way these are making the list, but they're these genres that I loved, which were comedies in the 90s. So like I loved and still love Wayne's World and Encino Man and Dumb and Dumber, and even like Ace Ventura I probably wouldn't love today, but like I would watch that all the time. And it's like, they're not really going to make a top 10 though, but they're movies that still hold a special place in my heart. And then there's the big dumb action movies like The Rock and Con Air and Face Off, and even Fifth Element kind of fits in this, where it's like they were nowhere close to being contenders for top 10s, but at the same time, it's like, but they're still movies that I love and I could still watch them today and be like, yep, this is stupid and I love it. And then there are movies, which again we'll get into after we do the first chunk, but where it was just like, oof, that 11 to 20, where it was just heartbreaking to not be able to include them. But we will save that for later.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully we get to some honorable mentions, because I have a few of those as well.
Right. I'm sure
you have 22 of them.
Yeah. I do.
Okay. So we're going to begin. Number 10 for me is Contact. So
Nice.
Contact, the Robert Zemeckis film, starring Jodie Foster, story by Carl Sagan. Just this great, lovely piece on kind of the false duality between like faith and science. And I love it. And I wish I was watching it right now. So number 10.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. Trisha, what's your number 10?
No, 10 through 4.
No, you gotta go through them.
Lightning round, 10 through 4.
Brian didn't like really clearly lay out the rules earlier.
Yeah, he didn't really
I was wanting to add to it. I'm
this
like,
is our third time doing this.
I know, but you know, Michael.
We did last. I don't have a memory.
So we just list out straight away 10
Boom,
through 4,
10 through 4.
and then we
10 through
talk
4.
about that as a block.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Number 10, Contact. Number 9, LA Confidential. Number 8, Apollo 13. Number 7, Titanic. Number 6, Heat. Number 5, Mission Impossible. And number 4, The Hunt for Red October.
Damn.
Nice.
This is very solid.
I feel pretty
That
good
is an
about
incredibly manly list, Michael.
It is. Like, why were all
With
of,
Titanic in there, but like that's a really masculine list. Very strong.
Very dad.
Putting this together, yeah, I'm like, why are all the sort of like crimey, like hyper masculine movies that I like from the 90s? But like, I don't know, it's just they made movies that they don't make anymore in the 90s, obviously. Like things like Heat or LA Confidential, just like really cool crime dramas, like don't exist anymore. And I just love them so much. And Apollo 13 is just always, there's some good movies in the 90s. So
this is a really solid list of movies we have not podcasted about too, for the most part. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for 2022.
Love it.
let's do
I
it.
want to talk about Contact. That'd be fun.
Me too.
Okay, Trisha, give us your 10 through 4.
All right, here we go. Number 10 is Silence of the Lambs. Number 9 is The Crucible from 1996 with Daniel Day-Lewis, Winona Ryder, and Joan Allen.
Right.
I can circle back to it, but it's really one of my favorite. Well, here's the thing. It's one of my it's one of my favorite plays ever, maybe my favorite play.
Arthur Miller.
And yes, Arthur Miller. Also, the screenplay was written by Arthur Miller. He adapted his own play into the movie. And it's just like a killer adaptation, really well directed by Nicholas Hittner, who was a great, amazing theater director and also gave us Center Stage, one of the most wonderful dance movies ever. Anyway, so The Crucible is just, it's a really amazing adaptation if you are a theater fan and a theater person, but it just checks a lot of my boxes. Anyway, number 8 is Boogie Nights. Number 7 is Mulan. Number 6 is The Big Lebowski. Number 5 is Trainspotting. And number 4 is Before Sunrise.
Nice.
These are fun lists because they're not really that overlappy so far.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so like
the top 3 might get there, but this is very diverse.
So many of Michael's movies were like honorable mentions for me, though. Like
Right.
lots. Like I wanted to put Titanic on my list because it completely rules. But I was like, can I put? It's like my favorite. Isn't it everybody's favorite? Isn't it just like
that weird,
the
it's like
most
pizza.
favorite movie? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that your list and my list, Trisha, would have either like a lot of overlap or exactly what's happened here, where it's just like we substituted last minute the different ones, but like all of these should be on the list.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Alex, 10 through 4.
All right. This is fun because it's so different from your guys' list.
I love it. Let's go.
All right. Number 10, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
Wow.
You stop it right now.
Number 9, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Wow.
Number 8, Babe. The Story of the Pig.
What's happening?
This is my
so excited.
This is my from the heart list, you guys.
Oh, that'll do.
This is not about looking cool. This is my heart.
I love it.
Number 7, Groundhog Day.
Nice.
Number 6, The Thin Red Line.
So good.
Number 5, Independence Day. And number 4, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Nice. Really good.
I
Wow.
like it. I like that the collective list that we're making is like so great. I'm so excited because
We
like
need to podcast about all of these.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
not Austin Powers. I'm sorry.
I mean, we could.
it was definitely a formative movie kind of thing. But yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire and Babe and Independence Day, like all like really great, like favorites of the childhood era.
I have not watched Austin Powers recently, but I feel like the first movie I would still absolutely love a lot. But maybe not. Who knows? We'll see.
Right. Will we see? Maybe we'll never know. Maybe
no,
you'll never
no
watch.
one will
2,000
ever know.
patrons, 3-part Austin Powers.
Oh my god.
And then we write the script for Austin Powers 4 as a Patreon exclusive episode.
That sounds great.
Incredible.
Write it down.
I watched Austin Powers so much.
Fascinating. I wasn't allowed to see Austin Powers when it came out. I had to sneak a VHS from the neighbor and like watch it like in secret. I remember my mom like coming home and us like racing to pause it, and she's like, "What are you watching?" It's like nothing. She's not good at lying.
My parents were weirdly cool
Wow.
with Austin Powers, maybe because it was like the James Bond satire aspect of it, but they were super into it too. So
It's
it was-
fairly tame.
Yeah, it was a family affair.
I mean,
It's mostly dumb.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
rather than like
There's like
offensive.
sausage, jokes and stuff, but it's not
Yeah.
like super racy.
listen, I was a classy child, okay? Slum with any of that.
He's like, Mom, I want to watch Contact again.
Basically.
Okay, Brian, give us your list 10 through 4.
Oh, Lord. All right. Number 10 is Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, Dazed and Confused, and Silence of the Lambs.
You can't
Wow.
do that.
Yeah, no, get
Sounds
out
like
of here.
cheating, Brian.
You can't do that.
Silence of the Lambs, number 10. This was just like the hardest for this list was just like what doesn't make the list.
Yeah.
All right. 10, Silence of the Lambs. 9, The Big Lebowski. Number 8, Train Spotting. Number 7, Swingers. Number 6,
I knew it.
Lost Highway. Number 5, Natural Born Killers. Number 4, American History X.
Nice.
We finally have a little bit of overlap.
Well, Alex and I
Okay.
usually have a lot of overlap with like the feel bad movies, but apparently this decade was when that started for me, but not yet for Alex.
I mean, I
He's
was a
watching
child.
Babe while I'm watching Natural Born Killers.
See, you haven't said some of the movies I know are going to be on your list, Brian. So this makes me even more certain I have a read on maybe a couple of your top 3.
Interesting. All right. But yeah, it's like I don't even want to talk about the other, like Fear and Loathing, Fargo. I love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 12 Monkeys, Aladdin, Pulp Fiction. Like there's just so many where I'm like, these are movies that I love. But again, it's just sort of what if I don't make it on the list, am I heartbroken or not? And like, okay, I can do without that one, but I can't do without this one, except for Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, and Dazed and Confused, which, as far as I'm concerned, are all they're in the sidecar next to the list.
See, you
pretty
had the
brutal.
same problem
Yeah.
that I had with Fargo and The Big Lebowski.
Right.
Because I had to pick Lebowski, but it's like, how can I Cohen problems?
Well, I'm very curious to see. I thought I had a good read on top 3, and I think I still do for Trisha and Alex, maybe. But like Train Spotting, I would have like expected to be higher for you, Brian. Maybe just because that's like the one 90s movies that we've talked about Big Lebowski and Silence of the Lambs. I don't know.
Train Spotting was almost not on the list, and then the more I thought about it, I was
Really?
like, no, it's on, and it's not at the bottom. But yeah, it was one of those sort of that sea of 10 movies where I'm like, what actually makes the bottom of the list and what doesn't quite?
Right. Okay. Well, so now we're gonna do one by one, go around, all share our top 3s, and then share our top 2s, and then share our number 1s. Right?
Yes, this brand new format.
Correct,
That is
correct.
how we're doing it.
Now I question everything. Okay. So this is fascinating. Oh, I might have switched. Okay. Anyway, so my number 3 is Groundhog Day.
Nice.
Very nice.
it's so good. We made a video about it. We did a podcast about it. It's just one of the best movies ever made. I remember loving it as a child for the fun Bill Murray-ness of it, and then appreciating it more and more as I got older, and all the just, wow, this is still good. This is still good. Oh, wow, this is going to be good forever. So, yeah, I don't know what more to say, but Groundhog Day, number 3 for Michael.
The movie I forget is the 90s, because maybe just because of Bill Murray or something, but there are certain movies, like, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. There are movies that you just assume are 80s movies, but Groundhog Day is like
Right.
It's 93. It's like a good portion into the 90s, but I just sort of like lump it in with 80s comedies in a weird way.
It kind of feels out of time in a weird way also.
Makes sense.
Appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Trisha, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is Run Lola Run.
Nice.
Whoa.
Which is like far and away one of my favorite movies of all time. And I just love it so much. It was so influential on me. And like, it's fundamentally an action movie, I guess. But, it's kind of doing like experimental film things where like parts of it are animated, and it has this really unusual structure. And why do I feel like Michael hasn't seen it? I'm like quite sure he has.
Wait, you didn't see it back? Because that was like in the Matrixy times.
Look at his
like,
all that hat.
People were like watching cool.
I wasn't allowed to see like movies still. I had to see a lot of those like
Even like late
already.
90s, you weren't allowed to?
No,
No.
PG-13 or under.
Michael, let me tell you what Run Lola Run is.
I've seen parts. Like I know of it. I know generally about it.
Anyway, it's a crime movie. It's an action movie, but it has all of these other like really amazing techniques in it. Franca Potente is a goddess at all times. Her look is incredible. I've dyed my hair so many times trying to get it that exact color, and you just can't. And I don't know. There's so much about it that I just really love. It's a love story also, it's kind of this, action crime love story thing that's also just like what a thrill ride at all moments, and you can never guess what's going to happen next. It's just really great. I don't know, I saw it at a really formative time and I'm obsessed with it. So I'm not naive enough to hope that we will someday do a podcast on it, but I really would love to sometime. I just think it's a fantastic film.
I'm open
down.
to it.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I haven't seen it since like the early aughts or something, so I
Right.
definitely love to watch it again.
I feel like as a signifier of how like the 90s brain that I have, every time I hear Run Lola Run, I'm like, oh, Lola, like Lola Bunny from Space Jam.
Wow.
So seeing the movie
We're very
to
different people,
disassociate
Michael.
that would probably be good. It's Lola Bunny. Okay, cool. Number 3, Run Lola Run. Alex, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Titanic.
Nice.
Because
Very nice.
it's just undeniable the impact it had on me. It's just, we've talked about Titanic on the podcast. It just keeps getting better, honestly. There's been all these waves with Titanic where I was obsessed with it. It's, for teenage girls. Oh, it's kind of dumb. You rebel against it. And the more I've revisited it over the years, the more it just holds up as just this Hollywood epic, this wonderful, just immaculately made, immaculately, put together big 3-hour Hollywood epic. And I just love a good Hollywood epic, and it's just amazing how well this movie still holds up today as just one of the best. So yeah, it was a huge influence on me at the time. I rode the wave of the backlash and was like, yeah, I don't like Titanic. And then I came all the way back around to be like, no, this is one of my favorite movies ever. And it needs to be in my top 3 because it's that big in my cinema development.
Right.
As we were like 3/4 of the way through the Titanic podcast, I had sinking feeling that I was just like, I'm sorry.
Wave
This is-
sinking.
Just wait. There's so much more coming. This is just the tip of the iceberg of these.
What's the impeachment process for getting someone kicked off this podcast? Just need to know. Anyway, I just had this feeling that we shouldn't have tried to tackle it in just like a normal 1 hour long episode. Like, maybe sometime we can revisit it, or there's got to be some kind of Titanic clause or something, Titanic clause or something. So I don't know. And just really get into it more, because I just feel like there's so much in it that is so triumphant and like worthy of praise. It is so good.
It came out in 3D, so we could do a podcast on Titanic 3D also, and we could
love it
that way.
Can we make the video podcast
really cool.
3D?
Don't say things that are gonna make me do stuff that you're gonna regret. Not again. Don't pull that ring out of me. Okay, great. So Titanic, number 3 for you, Alex. Brian, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Good Will Hunting, which, it's interesting because it was not a movie back during the time it came out that I called like a top favorite, but like Dazed and Confused, which just missed making the list, it's a movie that I liked when I first saw it just fine, but then over the years it continued to grow on me. And I think that's such a cool thing, because there are movies that do the opposite, which is like, I love this so much, and now I watch it, I'm like, the magic's kind of gone. And then there are movies like Good Will Hunting where it just gets better, kind of like you were saying, Alex, like it just keeps getting better every time I watch it. And that's just really rewarding and really fascinating. And, you know, the script and performances are of course fantastic, but it just has this like strong mood to it, the kind of the Gus Van Santiness of it all, with his directing, Danny Elfman's score, Elliott Smith's songs, the New England setting. For being a movie that's kind of a straight drama, it still does that mood thing that I like movies to do. So it kind of checks both my boxes of like, I want you to be a good movie, but I also want to just feel like I can live in this world. So yeah, Good Will Hunting.
Very nice.
Yeah, an excellent selection. I feel like, the mood is absolutely there, and it's just like beautiful, and like all like that's kind of maybe even part of the mood. It's just like there's something beautiful about the mood, and like that was one of the ones where going into making this list, I would have thought that would have been on mine, but I think it was, and I've talked about this before, but like when we work on a video, sometimes it squeezes all of the like love for the movie out of me, and so by the end I'm just like, I am exhausted of this movie and I need to take a break. And I love that video. I think it's one of our best videos, but this is me justifying why it's not on my list, because it's such a great movie, and I'm glad it's on yours.
It's not your fault.
Here we go.
Touche. As we've been talking about in this episode, the 90s were a crazy time for digital filmmaking. Jurassic Park showed the full potential of photorealistic CGI. Toy Story was the first animated feature-length film created entirely on a computer, and footage was being scanned to allow for digital video editing for the first time. It's even more impressive to think about the technology that these people were working with. Remember that this was a time where the most popular storage format was a 3.5-inch floppy disk that could hold 1.4 megabytes. To send the MP3 file of this episode to someone would have required 60 floppy disks. The HD video file on YouTube would take over 3,500. Luckily, today there is a better way to send our files. Massive. Massive is a file sharing service that lets media professionals quickly transfer terabytes of data to anyone in the world over the cloud. With Massive, there are no limits to the amount of data you can send, and Massive has 150 servers worldwide, which means whoever you're sending the file to will be able to download it at a maximum unthrottled speed. Transfers are encrypted, so no one but the sender and recipient can access the files, and sending files with Massive is super simple. You don't need a subscription to sign up or a complicated IT setup. Just pay as you go at 25 cents per gigabyte. To learn more and to sign up for Massive, head to massive.io/beyond-the-screenplay. When you sign up at that link, you'll get 100 gigabytes free towards your transfer, the equivalent of 70,000 floppy disks. That's massive.io/beyond-the-screenplay for 100 gigabytes free. The link is in the show notes. Thanks to Massive for sponsoring this episode. Now, back to the show. All right. Are we ready for number 2s?
Let's do it.
Yes.
So twos are stressful because there's like this process of elimination thing also that's happening. Where like on a meta level, then it's like, oh, well, that means that person's number one is probably this or that. So I'm just preparing myself for your number twos. But my number two is Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Whoa.
See, Alex's reaction is exactly what I'm talking about.
All right.
But yeah, Jurassic Park, one of the most formative films of all time for any filmmaker. It, saw it 5 times in theaters at least. It's the best, and it's the best. So Jurassic Park is my number 2.
Well spoken.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know this is not the last time we're going to talk about Jurassic Park today, but I want to say real quick why it was so weird for me to think about this for my list. It's a movie that I saw back when it came out and loved, but I never had the VHS of it. I don't know that I've ever even owned a copy of the movie. Yeah, so I didn't.
Who are you?
but I literally took my breath away.
Yeah. What? You have how many DVDs do you have behind you? Blu-rays?
But I wasn't like a huge movie person back then. I had like a dozen movies that I watched over and over again, and they were horrible, upsetting movies like A Clockwork Orange and Born Killers. So and Rocky Horror Picture Show and Labyrinth, which at least is nice, but. So it's like never a movie that I was on constant repeat with, but it was a movie that I saw plenty. But then 2 years ago, I went and saw the LA Philharmonic conduct the score at the Hollywood Bowl. And I was just so happy. And I was like quoting everything. And my girlfriend's like, I didn't know you liked this movie this much. And I was like, I do. And it was like a movie that even though I never actually owned it or anything, I have seen it so many times and I love it so much. But because my history with it is not just ever since the day it came out, I would watch it every day or anything like that. Then I was like, I kind of can't quite let it be on the list, but I needed to share that as I love it so much. And I thought it was going to be on the list. And I was like, oh, I can't quite get it there.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Fair.
Diversity. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can't all be in our top 3s.
Right.
I mean, it could.
It could.
Okay. Trisha, what is your number 2 favorite film?
My number 2 is Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, high up there.
It's
Great.
just so great. It's definitely my favorite De Palma movie. And it's one of the best heist action movies ever. And it just gave us this incredible action franchise. I think that's another big thing that you have to consider when you look back on it. It's a really well-made movie and just a great iconic film because it so is. Tom Cruise is incredible in it, and he was already a star, but sort of cemented a lot of those stunts that he did himself and sort of cemented his presence in film history, right? His sort of a movie star status, right? And it's also it just gave birth to this incredible action franchise and approach to making movies that I can't praise enough. And I just, just speaks to my little action loving heart so deeply. And so it was just very influential on me. It's a really great movie. I would watch it at any point. It's certainly anytime I see it on, I'm like, oh my God, it's Mission Impossible. Emmanuelle Béart is incredible in it. She's so good. Everybody's so good. Look, Emilio Estevez gets crushed by an elevator. It's so
cool.
good. It's so good. John Voight's so evil. There's a fish tank that explodes and
it means jump.
Running. Yeah,
the
so
slow-mo
good.
jump.
What a joy. Anyway, Mission Impossible rules. Most of the Missions Impossible rule. So.
Yeah. I'm sure I mentioned this at some point, but one of my favorite things to do as a kid was pretend I was Tom Cruise at the end of the first Mission Impossible on the train where he's holding on. And so I would hold on to the hood of my parents' cars and pretend that was the train and I was going backwards and
love it.
So exciting.
I didn't even mention Jean Reno. Jean Reno is so amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing about Mission Impossible is that I think if it came out now, we would be like, oh, they did a prestige action movie.
Yeah.
But it was like a prestige action movie before that was a thing. Like it's just a like made moody, gritty film that's also a fun action movie. Like so good.
It's a real spy movie in a way that the more recent ones are more action movies.
Right.
Yes, very good call on that. And we still haven't done a podcast about it. I can't wait. Let's go.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're figuring it out.
Yep.
We'll make it happen. Excellent. Okay. Alex, what is your number 2?
Austin Powers 2.
The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Yep.
No, this one's for Vince. It is The Shawshank Redemption.
Aw, yay! We love you, Vince.
Movie.
Yeah, and it truly is. It has a really special place in my heart because I think it cemented in my mind the ideal like Academy movie. Like this to me was like, oh, this is like a good movie. This is a movie that gives me these like deep existential feelings about life and makes me definitely cry at the end every time with that Thomas Newman score and Morgan Freeman voiceover. And,
say what to me who.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Get busy living or get busy dying. Like just all that, as just a young person, there's no cynicism. So it just cuts right to the core. And I mean, the music is like cheating, like that kind of simple Thomas Newman approach to that heart pulling score. It just gets me every time. I was like double checking today. Like, is this still like up there for me? Cause I haven't watched it for a long time. And I just watched some scenes and I was like, yeah, I'm going to cry. Okay. So this is still up there for me. So yeah, Shawshank Redemption. I would love to talk about it someday. Maybe make a video about it someday if we were so inclined. I know somebody who'd be very happy about that. So I'm down.
Yeah, we definitely need to, at the very least, talk about it. And we've intended to for Vince's birthday before, but it's never happened. But we're gonna do it. We keep forgetting. Life is hard and complicated.
Yeah, we're just waiting to surprise him.
Yeah,
we always remember.
But we will talk about it because I would love to rewatch it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I didn't see it in like a great first viewing setting, unfortunately. And I think that's affected my memory of it, so I'd love to see it again.
And in the frame was a tall drink of water.
That's not about Morgan Freeman.
It's not good. It's not good either.
No.
I feel like it's a decent swing, more than most people could do.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Brian, what is your number 2?
Also the Shawshank Redemption.
Nice.
Finally some overlap between us.
Yeah. It's Alex said everything. Where a movie like Good Will Hunting is sort of a mood movie while also being a solid drama. Shawshank is it's not trying to do anything super stylistic, or it's not trying to be like, it's not even trying to be special. It's just telling you a story straight, and it still knocks it out of the park. And just, the joke is that everyone's seen it 10 times because it was on TBS, for like every day in the 90s or whatever. But it's like genuinely a movie that I have sat down and watched many, many times, and just, it always works. And it's just like kind of, there's like nothing, I don't have any like anything critical to say about it. I wanted to do a I Love TS video about it because it has this really interesting thing where you don't actually, there's no dramatic question for the first half of the movie. It's just Andy is in prison and that's it. Like we know that he is innocent, but like there's no escape, there's no getting out or anything like that. It's not till I think probably the midpoint where he meets Tommy and he says like, oh, I know the guy who did this. It's like, oh, now this movie actually has a plot now. So the movie gets away with having like no plot for the first half and is still incredible and still just like so watchable. And you are hanging on to every scene because every individual mini story, like the guys on the roof and getting them to have a beer, like, or the record, all those mini stories are in themselves so fascinating that you're happy to just watch those until the movie kind of, eventually takes off in the second half.
I mean,
awesome.
Yeah, I think just every scene of that movie, there's so much humanity in that film. Yeah. And so it's just, there's something just heart opening about watching it. Even if nothing's really happening, it's still like reaffirming something about like goodness and humanity ultimately in the midst of like really dark, bad stuff. And I think there's something in us that just like needs to be reminded of that once in a while. And the Shawshank Redemption, by the end, that emotional catharsis, that music, it just brings it all home in a way that I want every movie to do. It just does it.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we're down to our number ones. So for people listening on the Spotify app and for people watching on YouTube, let us know what your top 10 of the 90s are. I don't know exactly how many characters fit in the Spotify app, but fit as many of the movies in as you can.
Just do it in emojis.
There you go. And you can just guess. But yeah, we want to see your guys' list, so let us know there. Okay, time for the final round. Are we ready?
I think I know Michael's and Trisha's, and I don't know what Alex's is. It's going to be like
Really?
Babe Pig in the City. I
feel like it's all resolved for me except for Brian.
Okay.
But
All right.
we'll
Brian, tell us what Michael's is.
7.
7.
Nice.
So-
Number 1.
Yeah, I just love 7 so much, and it's definitely not a movie, obviously, that I would have seen during the 90s, but from the first time I saw it, I was wowed, and the twist and all the things made me go like, this is such a cool movie, and then I would watch it again and again, and I feel like that's what probably launched my obsession almost with David Fincher, is just the filmmaking in this movie. And it's got a lot of the things I love about Fincher, but it's still early Fincher, and so it's still like rough and a little grainy, and there's some handheld even at times, and kind of like what you were saying, Alex, about Shawshank Redemption, I feel like it's a movie that, despite being very grotesque and ugly and dark and violent, is about hope and optimism, is kind of how I've come to take it anyway. Of like, by the end, spoiler alert, a character has changed to decide that something is worth fighting for, despite all of the terrible things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the original ending, also. That probably is worth noting, but I don't know. There's just something about the, kind of like what you were saying, Brian, about Good Will Hunting. It feels like a place. Like I feel like I'm in this like oppressive, dirty, rainy, noir city, which I love. And yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it where I could watch it endlessly. And we've talked about how that's weird, I know, but it's so pretty, it's so gorgeous despite being disgusting. So yeah, I feel like it's basically like a perfect movie, and I love it. So that is my number 1. So,
Wow, nice.
Okay, Trisha.
Surprising absolutely everyone.
Yes. What is your surprise entry?
Hold on to your butts.
It's Jurassic Park. It's just so good. It's the movie that made me want to make movies. I think I told this story on the podcast that we did about Jurassic Park, but it came out when I was, 1993, math, 7. I was 7 years old, and I was too young to watch it then, according to my parents. But my sister, who was 9 years old, got to go and see it. And she like described every single like shot of it to me, and like even had most of the dialogue to like bring me and tell me about. And it was just everything. I mean, Jurassic Park was just everything in the 90s, and it was everything to me. And it was just, I basically watched it to infinity. Like I just watched it over and over and over again, and it still holds up so well. Is the crazy part. I cannot believe how well it holds up. It's almost 30 years old. In a couple of years it'll be 30 years old, and it looks so damn good. It's just such a great movie. It's such a good script. It's one of the best casts ever assembled.
Yes,
like it's
iconic,
incredible. And obviously all the things people say about it, it's like landmark special effects, it's like this incredible, just huge adventure like thing with these sort of like horror thrillery elements, because it's like a monster movie. It's so good. Like it's just so movie, like it's just capital M movie.
Yes.
But at the heart of it, it's also like a film. Like it's also like really about something. It's just and like it's smart. It doesn't pander to the audience. Like, it's aimed squarely at the middle of the demographic, and yet it's actually like really intelligent. It doesn't hold your hand about anything. The filmmaking techniques are really sophisticated, and like, it's just so good. It's a perfect movie. I could talk about it for hours upon hours. So yeah, Jurassic Park.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Good choice. For something very different, let's go to Alex's number one.
Which I realized when I said I didn't know what Alex's number one was, that he had not yet said.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. Yeah, just no. Everything Trisha said, ditto. Just
when it's the right answer, it's the right answer.
Like, just 100% everything you said. And we've been mentioning mood. Jurassic Park is a mood. You know, the rainy T-Rex scene.
Hell yeah.
Like, that's when I knew movies were magic, was being in the movie theater and feeling cold and feeling like I was in the car with the rain pattering on the roof, feeling that kind of nervous tension of what's going to happen. Like, that movie made me realize what cinema could do as far as just giving me a full body experience. I mean, I talked about Dune recently and how that kind of returned me to that state in a movie theater. And I think part of the reason why I got so obsessed with Dune for the last week and loved my experience so much was I think it just directly gave me a line back to Jurassic Park, to that, those early formative experiences in a theater. I saw it at least twice in theaters, when I was 6, 7 years old. And like that is the origin.
Yeah.
That is the origin of all of this. That's why I am here, was because of that just overwhelming, amazing experience. So yeah, thank you, Steven Spielberg, for making this movie that inspired like millions of people. I'm pretty sure, like an entire generation. It's like basically why they want to do anything in the arts or with film. So bravo.
I mean, it's just, people don't make monster movies anymore, but it's just because he made the best one. Like, I just don't know what better monster movie are you gonna make? Like, it's just, they're real monsters. They were real living things. And it's, we don't have very many movies about like sort of this primal horror of like coming up against nature in a really terrifying way. That's also not like, a disaster movie or something. I feel like anytime we have like a man versus nature, sort of this primal story, it's all like disaster stuff. And this is just like, oh, it's so good. Like this force that we can't understand. And it's so scary.
Yeah, there's something universal about that. Yeah, like coming up against this thing from nature that you don't understand or you can't wrap your mind around, or it's like, it's too primal, it's too ancient, you can't deal with it. Yeah.
So good.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and there's like hubris also going on,
of course,
of all that. But yeah, like you guys are saying, that it's an ancient threat. It's not like some Godzilla. Well, I guess Godzilla in the movies is ancient, kind of. I don't know.
But Godzilla's not real.
But it's real, yeah.
Right.
Like, these
right.
actually existed on Earth.
Right.
So it didn't look like this, but some version of them existed.
Right. So it's like fantasy monster stuff, but it's real. And it's clashing right in front of you, and it's executed amazingly.
And you can feel the commitment from the filmmakers to be as accurate as they possibly could with the information they had at the time, with the way the dinosaurs move, with just the look and feel of them. And that is part of why it feels special and different. It's not just a completely made up alien creature that moves in kind of an awkward CG way. These are like animals that they studied how animals move to make them.
Yes. And I think so much about what Brian has said before on the podcast about like how things that are real will never look worse than they looked when they came out. And like the fact that so many of the dinosaurs are actually real, or they were like built, like the T-Rex head was completely real, actually built. Like so much of that stuff is never going to look worse. And it looks great. Like it looks so good. And because you can't, it's not going to degrade over time the way that like cutting edge special effects do. Even stuff like the Brachiosaurus, the like big, huge wide shot of it at the beginning where it's like, welcome to Jurassic Park. It doesn't look like as good as CGI looks now, but it doesn't look like some of the worst that I've seen. It
looks better than Jurassic World. Sorry. Like these new Jurassic Park movies, like what the hell?
Of course it is. And the raptors in the kitchen are just
amazing. Amazing.
You will never convince me they're not real raptors. I just don't understand. It's just movie magic in all caps, and it holds up incredibly well. I don't understand how it looks so good, and it's just.
I'm very sad that I just missed making that a bingo for the four of us, but it is
Brian, you
very
really
high in my
bingo.
not quite on the list.
Keep apologizing.
Yeah, that's okay. Difference is good. Difference is exciting. Brian.
It's Jurassic Park.
Sometimes it's incorrect.
Oh, hold on. Michael was doing a thing. He knows what he's doing.
Right,
Do it again.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Difference is good. Difference can be exciting. Brian, what is your number one favorite film of 1990 to 1998?
So different than any of the other answers. Mine is also Seven.
Oh, hey. Right, of course. Wait. Oh. I didn't even know what I was doing.
Oh, really? I thought you were like setting up. Like, look how different we all are.
It's kind of like a full house here. We need to ask Vince what his number one is. It needs to be one of those two.
We know what his number one is.
That's true.
This movie, as you were saying, Michael, it's so tactile. It's like you can reach out and feel the world of Seven, whether you want to or not. I've mentioned many times, this and Blade Runner are just two movies where I feel like there is just such a mood, such a tactile like experience that's happening, and it just really works for me. And yeah, it's an ugly story, but the performances and obviously the directing and the themes, they all just come together to make this horrible, ugly, wonderful, beautiful thing and I also think it was because it was like 95. So I was 13. So I was probably like not renting, like borrowing, finding some VHS of it to watch. And even my mom would watch it and she loved it too. She's like, that's one of the best movies I've seen, which is like a very different experience than most teens have with their parents with R-rated content. And I think it's also one of the first movies where I was like, oh, you can make something that's both entertaining and has something to say. Because even if I was seeing Jurassic Park or even a movie like Labyrinth, like at the time I didn't realize that those movies were actually saying something because they didn't literally say it. And then there are other movies where like the characters are just talking about the theme, but it's like very talk heavy, and maybe my teen brain wasn't ready for that kind of thing. But Seven was one where I was like, oh, you're making a thrilling, entertaining movie, but also your characters are discussing the theme and they are saying what the thing is. So like I can appreciate that from an early age. And it just still holds up. It's just another movie that I can keep watching and just feel like it just absolutely works.
Agree completely.
We got to talk about Seven, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jurassic Park again.
You can do Seven, right?
Just close your eyes during the crime scene parts.
Listen, I saw it one time, and
there are images that you don't want your brain.
Yeah, there's
probably.
stuff that but I would be fine. We can talk about it.
Do that. We'll do Run Lola Run. We got.
Okay.
There's a lot of movies we've discovered that are left to talk about, and we will talk about all of them. And we're not even done with the 90s. Like Brian, you were saying, like as far as movies that made you realize, like, oh yeah, movies can be about stuff and this and that. I was just like, it's time to talk about our top 5 of 99. So we're gonna go talk about the top 5 of 99. You listener listening to this now, it's available. It'll be in our show notes. You can go and check out what our top 5 of 1999 is. I'm very excited. Thank you all for listening. Thank you so much to the patrons for getting us past the 900 patron goal and for supporting the show. Thank you. We love you. We want to say a big thank you to our producer, Vince Major, as well. I'm Michael Tucker, and I've been joined today by Trisha Rand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros. As always, our Twitter handles are in the show notes. Send us a tweet and say hi, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.